Hello adventurers and welcome back to the Quiet Kenku. We're going to be reading some Reddit stories. Specifically, we're going to be looking at Reddit stories that have to do with people and their trans journey and things like that, and what made them realize they were trans. I wanted to do this because ultimately I've been thinking about it a lot, specifically about my own journey. I came out about a year ago and started hormones about 6 months ago, and I am so happy. I never knew the world had this much color in it, that there was so much beauty in even the smallest things. And I gotta say, I'm really excited for my first autumn since coming out, because the leaves changing color and all of that. I think it'll be a really new experience. Before we begin, I want to tell a little story of my own. I grew up my entire life as a boy. I was your boy. I had mostly guy friends, we did guy things, I even played sports, all the stereotypical stuff that when you think of a boy, I probably did it. I didn't like all of it. I was definitely more the artsy type, and so I wasn't the biggest fan of getting dirty, but I still did, because my friends did. And I did things, I had girlfriends, I did all of those things that, boys are told that you do. And then one day, started questioning things, and eventually I figured it out. Now that's a huge oversimplification. There was a lot of stuff that happened in between, and I had times where I wondered if I was non-binary, or if I wondered if I was gender fluid, or what I might have been. But then I figured out that no, I'm a trans woman, and while I'm still voice training, and my voice definitely, I hate it, I really do, I'm still using it to talk to you today and tell my story and read some others. Now this is off of just r/AskReddit. Somebody on that subreddit had asked trans redditors, what is your story? How did you grow up and realize your gender? And so we'll go ahead and start here. This is from the perspective of a trans man. It wasn't an easy path, that's for sure. I've gone through a lot of changes in my journey of figuring out who I am. For starters, I am 30 and assigned female at birth. My parents were the typical religious type, and my dad listened to Rush Limbaugh with me in the car from the time I was about a year old. I had my first crush on a girl, a volunteer teacher at a research facility we went on a field trip when I was in kindergarten. That started this whole rabbit hole of wondering, because a girl liking girls was bad, and only boys liked girls. But I'm not a boy, right? So I can't like girls? All this to say, I started questioning myself when I was very young. There's a lot more in the next 8 years, but let's just say I was never very girly, and somehow when I would wear skirts and dresses, it felt very wrong. When I was 13 until I was 15, I spent way too much time unsupervised on the internet, and I learned that girls could in fact wear boys' clothes. They're just clothes. I started stealing my brother's clothes from the dryer, and I'd barricade myself in my room, use an ace bandage I stole from our first aid cabinet to bind my chest down, and wear my brother's clothes, and tuck my long hair up under a hat. I'd just sit in my room dressed like a boy. Fast forward to 15, 16. I started to get that not like other girls mentality, and fueled by self-hatred, I threw myself into Christianity and what we'd now call trad wife femininity. I got a traditional misogynistic religious boyfriend who had a traditional misogynistic religious mother and stepfather, so I got deeper into that. We didn't last, and I got a job right before my 17th birthday, and kinda settled back from the insane Christian trad wife thing. And just got back into the not like other girls thing. I just kind of ignored my feelings. feelings and repressed them to the point where I genuinely didn't think I had those feelings anymore. Fast forward, my first husband and I were near the end of our marriage. I'm 23, he and I had an open/polyamorous relationship throughout the entirety of our relationship. I started dating a trans woman. At first, because I was attracted to her, and absolutely not attracted to my husband, which was an entire different thing to unpack. I just thought I was a lesbian, so I admittedly sort of used that as an out with my marriage, and lived as a lesbian for about a year and a half. Then I started questioning things. In 2019, memories started to resurface, as well as feelings. By the beginning of 2020, I was more mask-leaning, and by the middle of 2020, I was going by he/him pronouns, wearing binders, wearing my hair short, the whole shebang. I went back and forth with myself and fluctuated a lot. I went to therapy, and I gained a group of friends who were all under the LGBTQIA+ umbrella, and who were immensely supportive and understanding. A few really helped guide me along the path, and I'm so extremely grateful for them. Where I stand now, I'm more along the lines of gender fluid, or even agender, but I prefer the term non-binary for simplicity, and it just feels right. I've settled into myself a lot, especially since getting into my current relationship and having the space to look into myself, feel my feelings, and explore my identity. All of that to say, I now just do whatever I want without feeling like I have to perform a certain gender identity. I'm settled into myself and I'm happy. I prefer neutral pronouns and have reached the point where I really just don't care what I'm called, as long as it's not a derogatory ma'am or anything of that ilk. Sorry if this was kind of long-winded, never really sat and written this out. There's more to it. I left out some of the more depressing things. I don't necessarily want to lay that out, but I had the same destructive thoughts and feelings and tendencies as many people who've walked a similar path have had. Honestly, I think a lot of people can relate to this feeling. This feeling of not really knowing what's right and swinging so far the other way that you almost get into the type of person that would hate who you eventually become. Going back to, they said that they went for the traditional Christian trad wife vibe, that's not super uncommon among trans people, where they have those feelings and then they start to, at a certain age, go, oh, I'm not like everybody else, and then just go so far the other direction. It's not uncommon. It's a lot of repressed feelings and self-hatred, and especially for people that grow up in a Christian or Catholic household, or other religion as well. It's not just Christianity. But growing up in a religious household, you might swing so far the other direction that you dive headfirst into religion to repress those feelings. That's not an uncommon thing. I had friends personally back in high school who did a very similar thing. And then guess what? A few years later, they realized how ridiculous they were being. And they came out as trans, they came out as non-binary, they came out as whatever, because that's who they really were. Now, that's not to say that everybody who falls under that Christian umbrella is that, but it is very interesting that it is a somewhat common thing to happen.